Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and I want to discuss some concerns I have for new investors into the space who might not be aware of what they are getting themselves into. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So the first thing we're going to talk about is sort of the general emotional response I'm seeing from a lot of new investors in the space. I know there's a lot of new investors in the space because this YouTube channel grew by 100,000 subscribers in the last 4 weeks alone. Okay, and also there's going to be new investors into the space anytime Bitcoin goes parabolic, which is what it is doing. So with that in mind, I want to discuss what I've seen in the chat, general responses I've seen to some videos and whatnot, and then also show a way to view the market, which I think will help everyone win, okay, in the long term. Okay, so this is what we're going to be discussing. Make sure you guys subscribe. Okay, definitely subscribe to the channel. So the first thing I would like to say is, one common thing that I do is I'll record several videos, maybe 2 or 3 in a row, and then I'll stagger their release. So I recorded one last night, and Bitcoin was at $60,000, and we were just doing a general update on our bull market support band. And it was a weekly update. If you follow this channel, you know we do this update basically every single week where we discuss where our bull market support band is. And the reason is because, again, in prior bull markets, we have held it as support. Now, that doesn't mean we will hold it as support this bull market, but we can already definitively say that we did hold it as support once. And when we were over here, we made videos week over week over week saying this, if we hold it, sentiment will change on a dime, okay? That's what we said. We said this is the time to focus on Bitcoin accumulation, right? If you're focused on, say, the 20-week, and the reason we said that is because no matter whether Bitcoin goes up, down, or sideways, it'll likely outperform altcoins. That's just generally what it does when it's near the 20-week moving average. So that happened. We held it as support. Bitcoin went parabolic. We got a lot of new money in the space. And then what do I see happening? Well, I published this video when I recorded it when Bitcoin was at 60K. So I recorded the video up here. And I was basically just discussing, hey, our bull market support band is now at 34,000 up to 37,000 or so. And there was a lot of comments. There was a lot of comments where people were saying, oh, it's a little bit too late. And I was like, what are they talking about? Well, what's going on? And I realized that they're saying it's too late because of this little candle right here. And the fact that the video had been scheduled to release a few hours later, so we had a 6% drop by the time the video had released. So what I want to say is that this channel is focused on macro moves, okay? I don't know what's going to happen in the short term. Tomorrow, Bitcoin could drop 40% for all I know. It could also go up to $70,000 tomorrow. This is not a day trading channel. It's not a channel for me to feed you short-term predictions that I think will happen. Sometimes we dubiously speculate, but I fully make everyone aware that this is just pure dubious extrapolation, nothing you can take to the bank, not financial advice, okay? I make that clear. I do not know what will happen in the short term. I make no claims to it. So the videos that I put out are macro videos. They're related to where are we, where's the general market structure. It's not meant for day trading. There's plenty of day trading channels you guys can watch where they'll pretend to make money, but this is not one of them, okay? This is not one of those channels. We're looking at the macro scale. Now, what scares me when I see these short-term pullbacks is not the price, because I actually would welcome a pullback, honestly. I mean, to be completely honest, my Bitcoin percentage in my portfolio is lower than I would like it to be. And namely, it's because, I have taken some profits, and a lot of altcoins have gone up substantially, and I've taken some profits there, but the altcoin positions have gone up a lot. A lot of the coins we cover on our channel have gone up significantly since a year ago, right? A year ago, Ethereum was less than $100, and now it's sitting at $17.72. A year ago, ADA was sitting at less than 2 cents, and now it's sitting at $1.02. A year ago, Chainlink was trading for $1 to $2, and now it's sitting at $27. And a few months ago, when DOT launched in August, it was sitting at around $3 to $4, and now it's at $35, $34 to $35. So the altcoin percentages of my portfolio have gone up. The Bitcoin percentage right now has temporarily gone down. And the point for me to tell you this is to say, I would welcome a drop, right? I would welcome a drop. I will respect the fact that we might not get one. We might not get one down to this level, but if that were to happen, I would welcome it. So it's sort of how do you see the market? Do you only buy when it's going up, or do you see dips as opportunities to come in and sort of accumulate more Bitcoin? Okay, so what I have said before is that this move that we've seen over the last 6 months is pretty ridiculous, to be completely honest, right? It's pretty ridiculous, and every single month I keep saying that it's more likely to go up than down. The only reason I say this is because the main bit of technical analysis, traditional TA, that I would believe is momentum, and I think momentum is taking us up. Okay, and because I think momentum is taking us up, on any given month, I'll say, okay, well, it's more likely to go up than down, and that will remain true until I see a decisive correction where we actually have a sustained correction. We have not had a sustained correction in over 6 or 7 months. Okay, so we can't really say that these are sustained. I mean, this was a 2-week drop, and then we just continued along. This was a 1-week drop, and then we just continued along. So these are not sustained corrections. So I see a lot of new money. There's a lot of new money in the space, and they're buying Bitcoin at, the all-time high, and then they're getting spooked when it drops 5 to 10%. And my main concern is that these people, they'll get spooked when it drops 5 to 10%, and then they get really scared if it drops 20 to 30. And some of them sell, some of them capitulate when it drops 30%, some of them don't. But then what concerns me is how quickly the emotion can change. So then when Bitcoin starts moving back up, all these people will then change their tune. They'll say, who bought the dip? Even though a few days ago they were whining about it dropping 10%. My concern is there will come a time where it will be a much larger drop than 10% or 20% or 30%, right? We're going to have 40, 50% corrections in Bitcoin in the future, probably 60 to 70% corrections, maybe not over the span of a day, but we probably will have 60%, 70% corrections of Bitcoin's price at some point. Now that 70% correction might not come until Bitcoin goes to $150,000 or so. So then a 50% correction from there would take it to a modest 75 grand. So I don't know when that's going to come. But the problem is that a lot of the new people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the top is, because wherever it is, they're going to get completely wrecked when it does drop. And it doesn't matter whether it drops if it drops now at 60K and it goes back to 35K or something. It doesn't matter if it goes to 90K and then drops to 45K. It doesn't matter if it goes to 120 and then drops down to 60K. Okay, no matter what happens, there will be a lot of people that will get wrecked completely if they have the wrong mindset about how to manage this market. And I'll tell you this, looking at it on a day, like a 4-hour time frame, a day-to-day time frame, and trying to realistically predict what's going to happen is not going to do you any favors. But I would like to show you guys something that I think will help your outlook on the market. Okay, I think this will help everyone watching this. So make sure you subscribe. We're going to show you a chart that I think is very helpful. This one. Okay, this is the running 1-year ROI. Okay, the running 1-year ROI of Bitcoin. Meaning it's basically just saying, okay, well, what's your return had you bought a year ago? And it recalculates that every single day. Okay, every single day we just recalculate it. And we see that we can have 80 to 90% drops in a year. In fact, Bitcoin has had 3 80 to 90% drops, where literally if you had bought 1 year before this data point, you would have been sitting at an 80% loss in Bitcoin. Same thing here. If you had bought 1 year before this day, you would have been sitting at an 80% loss. If you had bought 1 year before this day, you would be sitting at an 80% loss. But what do you notice? Time is on our side, right? It goes back up. It goes back up. Now, the first thing you might say, well, hey, doesn't this sort of look like it's trending down? And I would agree, right? It does look like it's trending down. But before you guys jump to any conclusions, you need to understand what this chart is showing. Is it showing the price? No. it's showing the multiple of the price as measured a year ago to today. So what does that mean? What could cause this to go down? Well, the reason why it shot up is because it's comparing the price to a year ago, and we just had the March capitulation a year ago. So if the price of Bitcoin were to stay constant at 55K, this would start going down. Why would it go down? Well, because if you look at the price a year ago, the price from this point basically just started going up until you get to where we currently are, right? It really didn't do anything else other than go up for the last year. So even if Bitcoin stayed constant at 55K, this would actually go back down, okay? So you have to consider that when looking at these charts. It doesn't mean the price has to crash. I mean, it doesn't mean it won't, but you have to understand that this is not an absolute measure of the price or anything like that. It's what was the price doing a year ago compared to what it's doing today. If the price today is constant and the price a year ago was going up, then this will go down. If the price a year ago was going up and the price today is going up, then you have to compare at what rate each time frame was going up to figure out whether this is going to go up or down. Okay, but you notice that there's been 3 times where you would have been sitting on an 80 to 90% loss in Bitcoin had you bought a year before these 3 capitulations. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're buying Bitcoin and your outlook is only 1 year, or even worse, like if your outlook's only say 3 months or something, then you can easily get wrecked in this space, right? Easily. We could have major corrections, and if you need the money and you're forced to liquidate, it's going to suck because there's a decent chance you liquidate and then the price goes up right after you sell it. So you cannot really, I mean, it's not financial advice, but I would not recommend approaching crypto with a less than 1 year time frame, especially for Bitcoin. Maybe for some altcoins, I can understand sort of, okay, well, Bitcoin's doing very well, altcoins are starting to move some, or maybe you speculate on them starting to move, then maybe you could have a shorter time frame. But for Bitcoin and Ethereum, for sure, I would say, have a longer outlook than 1 year. Okay, because in 1 year you could have an 80 to 90% loss, but it's the people who stick to it are the people who make a lot of money. And it's the people who continue to DCA in the bear market that do the best. Okay, so when people are running for the hills, because they're scared of the price because it's capitulating, there's some people quietly moving in. Okay, it's not flashy. They're not gonna advertise necessarily. I mean, some people will, of course, but there will be a lot of smart money just sort of quietly moving in, buying the fear. Now let's move this out some. Let's look at the 2-year ROI. What do you notice? Well, there's only been 2 times now where the ROI would have gone down to this region, but the max ROI over 2 years has gone up from the 1-year ROI. If we go look at the 3-year ROI, you can see that the lowest point was over here, which would have been maybe a 50% loss. It's not so bad when you have a longer term ROI in mind, or a longer time frame, right? If you think about 3 years out, you're generally, as long as you're above 10 to the 0, which is 1, there aren't going to be that many times in history where you would have been sitting at a loss, right? You would have been sitting at a loss very briefly here and very briefly here. But more or less, you would have been winning. You would have been making money in Bitcoin by simply holding it for 3 years. And don't even get me started on the 4-year ROI. Right? Don't even get me started on the 4-year ROI. Basically, if you bought Bitcoin and held it for 4 years, you would have been hard-pressed to find a time that would have yielded you anything lower than 10x, right? It briefly dropped below 10x over here in 2015. It briefly dropped below it here, and then maybe a couple times in here. But for the most part, if you were buying Bitcoin over the last decade, if you had bought Bitcoin and you were down and you had not seen a 10x in those 4 years, you're either incredibly unlucky or you just you do not have a plan, right? You do not have a plan. You're only buying at like market cycle tops. You're not thinking about, hey, why don't you buy when the market is down? I know that's, a novel concept, right? But that is how you win in crypto. It is not buying the bull runs, right? It's not buying the new all-time highs. I'm not saying you can't make money. There have been plenty of people making money. Plenty of people have been making money. They've been buying it at 30K and 40K and 50K, and they're making money, right? And that's great. That's great. But this is a different strategy, right? There's a different strategy between, say, buying in the accumulation phase and then waiting for things to blast off than chasing a bull market, right? There's a completely different thing there. So to bring this back, to new investors. Okay, you have a lot of new investors coming in right now, and I see them getting so spooked over 5 or 10% drops. What concerns me is that I'm fairly convinced we're going to have a 40% drop in the not so distant future. I mean, it might not come at 60K, maybe it comes at 80K or 100K, but I do think we'll have 40% drops, maybe even higher than 40% drops. And what scares me is that there's a lot of new money in the space, and they're not ready for that at all, right? They get spooked when you get 5%, when they're 5% down. God forbid they're 35% down or 40% down, right? This is not something they can even imagine, because if they started buying Bitcoin back in March of 2020, before or after the crash, they don't think that it can go down. All they see is that Bitcoin goes up, right? All they see is this. They just look at this and say, well, Bitcoin goes up. You go back further and you say, well, it doesn't always go up. Sometimes Bitcoin goes down. There's been plenty of times where Bitcoin goes down, and it's a sustained move down. It's not just a week or two, it might be a year or two. Okay? So you have to consider the implications of the market. And the way the market works is it's filled by these bull runs, and it's filled with bear markets. Okay? And one of the things we've discussed is there are a lot of similarities between this market cycle so far and 2 cycles ago, when we didn't test the 20-week for a long period of time. And then finally we did test it, and it was one hell of a correction. One hell of a correction. Tons of people got completely wiped out. But guess what? Bitcoin just continued on higher a few months later. Okay, so what I want to say with where we are, is that if you're coming into the space for the first time and you don't have Bitcoin and you want Bitcoin, I've always said it. I've been saying it since it was, $3,000, $3,100 back in 2018. I was saying it I didn't have the channel back then, but I was saying it at $3,800 a year ago. It's too risky not to own Bitcoin. And I'll say that on this channel every week, every month, right? That I think about it, right? I mean, it's in my opinion, it's too risky not to own Bitcoin. But does that mean you can't? Does that mean you should chase the major move? It depends on if you have Bitcoin. It depends on what your outlook is. If your outlook is 4 years, right? 4 years. I mean, you're probably going to be doing pretty good. 4 years from now would be 2025. I think there's a decent chance that Bitcoin is doing better than a 90% drop in 4 years from now, right? I mean, to sort of like just say something that should seem obvious, but it depends on what your outlook is. It depends on what your time frame is. Is your time frame 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? We are approaching. We've hit the upper regression band twice. We've now come back out down below it. I've often said that I think there's a decent probability we break this regression band because it's only fit to 3 data points. It's not necessarily something you can take to the bank. It doesn't mean it won't help time the top, at least a local top or a market cycle top. It doesn't mean it won't, but it's not something I think you should take to the bank and say that it has to, because again, it's just a fit to 3 data points, and it's just this equation. If you get, anyone can do the same fit, right? I think a lot of people think this is some Bitcoin magic or something that I'm doing. It's literally just this equation. So it's not that complicated. I think you learn this stuff in middle school, these types of equations. A times the Ln of x minus b, right? And you just rate 10 and then raise to that power. It's not complicated, so I don't want you guys to think this is some magic or something, because it's not. It's literally a fit of this equation to 3 data points, right? It's 3 data points. So with that in mind, I just want to sort of wrap up by saying there's a lot of new money into the space. This channel is focused on macro moves in the market, and we do a weekly video on the bull market support band every single week, basically. You go back months and months and months. We've been doing a video every single week. I made one yesterday. I posted about 8 hours later. The price of Bitcoin had dropped a few $1,000s in that time frame, and everyone's freaking out saying, oh, this video is coming too late. Look at this candle. Look, if we zoom out, what people are freaking out over at this point, you might have to squint your eyes, is that is what people are freaking out so much right now in the chat. Okay, and I'm not trying to say that it can't go down further, because I could see that, right? I mean, of course it could go below 56K. But there still is a lot of momentum. We have had corrections like this before where, I mean, this one went down 31%, this one went down like 27%. So far, this is not even really a correct. I mean, it's just like a daily fluctuation, right? I mean, it's not even a major dump by any means yet. So have a plan. How do you navigate this market? Have a plan. Is your plan to buy in the accumulation phase and slowly sell as it goes up? That's my plan. Is your plan that you're new money into the space and you recognize that Bitcoin is something you want to hold for the next 5 to 10 years? You recognize that things are overheated right now. We could have major corrections. And if we did have a major correction, let's say we came up like this and then we drop back down and then sort of go back up and go back up later on. Are you going to be able to live through something like that? And if you do, are you going to see it as an opportunity? Or are you going to be running for the hills because you think, oh, this is the end of Bitcoin? So hopefully this makes sense. I think that this market cycle is definitely one that will have its own unique characteristics. It already does, straight from the accumulation phase, straight from the fair value, right up to the peak regression band. Doesn't mean we can't go buy it. Remember, don't have a short-term outlook on this market. This channel is not for that. If you're looking for that, I can assure you, you're on the wrong channel. And there's plenty of channels that exist that'll do what you're wanting and give you these short-term price predictions and whatnot. And again, in a bull market, as long as everyone ends the TA with and then it goes up, they'll continue to likely be right because it's a bull market and things just go up. Okay. But there will come a time where you'll see, a bear market and all these ascending triangles will then just start breaking out to the downside. Okay, so keep that in mind. Look at this from a macro perspective. Don't look at it in terms of a 3-month ROI or a 6-month ROI in terms of you have to cash out at that point. Look at it in terms of a multi-year investment that Bitcoin will likely trend up over the next several years. I wholeheartedly agree that Bitcoin will go, or I wholeheartedly think that Bitcoin will go to 6 figures. I don't know if it'll do it this year, but I do think it'll do it, within the next 2 or 3 years, which still would represent almost a 2x from where we currently are. And I contend it could go up to $200,000 this market cycle. So just something to keep in mind. I just sort of want to bring everyone in. Remember, this is not a short-term gain. This is not a short-term game to play. Bitcoin is a macro investment, in my opinion. And I want new money to be aware that when a correction comes, we're going to come out on the channel and say, hey, is this not the opportunity you wished for? The one that you said, oh, I wish I could buy Bitcoin at cheaper prices? And, at the same time, I would be like, well, I mean, everyone likes to say it. How many people put their money where their mouth is? How many people, I mean, I was buying Bitcoin on the channel down here, and I know a lot of people were watching this channel and buying Bitcoin aggressively down here. It's a lot easier to say you would have bought Bitcoin down here than to actually do it. So the next time we have a major correction, see it for the opportunity it is. I wouldn't say don't run for the hills and forget about crypto until it's already up, 10x in a year again before you decide to move back in. Hopefully this sits well with some people. Hopefully it resonates. If you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember, we also have the premium list, Altcoin season sale. We'll probably be ending it in the next 1 to 2 days. We had a lot of traffic on the website, and so some people had some issues signing up, so I want to extend it a little bit longer. But make sure you guys sign up, check out the premium list. You get access to the trading view indicators, the weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, the Into the Cryptoverse app, and more. So check that out. Momentum is still with Bitcoin for now. There's still a decent chance this is but a bump in the road to 70K or 80K in the not so distant future. If this is the correction, it presents an opportunity. Okay? Subscribe to the channel, turn on your guys' alerts, make sure you get notified of future videos, give the video a thumbs up. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.